I thought my apartment was my sanctuary, my private world. I was a rising supermodel, about to sign the biggest campaign of my life. Paris. Elite Paris. My dream. And then my landlord, the man I trusted, smiled and said, "You're not going to Paris, Jennifer. Not unless we reach an agreement." He wasn't joking. Through the mirrors I trusted, he had been watching me. Every shower, every skincare routine, every moment I thought I was alone. And now my career, my family, my life, all depended on what I did next. The first thing I remember about the apartment is the light. It wasn't just bright, it was deliberate. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the far wall like a promise, framing a slice of the city skyline in silver and glass. The afternoon sun spilled in, hitting the polished concrete floors and bouncing upward in a soft, flattering glow. It was the kind of natural lighting influencers pray for, the kind that doesn't need a filter. I stood in the middle of the studio with my phone in my hand, already imagining the angles, the clean white walls, the matte black kitchen fixtures, the minimalistic floating shelves. Every surface felt curated before I had even unpacked. "This place was made for you," the landlord had said earlier, watching me take it in. He stood a few steps behind me, hands casually tucked into the pockets of his tailored coat. He was in his early 40s, impeccably dressed in a navy suit that looked custom-fitted, not flashy, refined. His hair was perfectly styled, with just enough gray at the temples to make him look distinguished instead of aging. "I've seen your work," he added with a small, almost shy smile. "You have presence." I laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Compliments were currency in my world. I'd learned how to accept them gracefully without appearing arrogant. "Thank you. That means a lot." And it did, because this wasn't just any apartment. This was the upgrade. At 22, I had already walked in 3 fashion weeks, shot 2 international campaigns, and grown my following to nearly 1.3 million across platforms. My inbox never slept. PR boxes arrived weekly. Designers sent me unreleased pieces, trusting my image to elevate them. But behind the glam, there was pressure. Endless pressure. Every photo had to be perfect. Every candid had to look accidental but flawless. My skin couldn't break out. My body couldn't fluctuate. My mood couldn't dip at the wrong time. My old apartment, small, dim, and slightly chaotic, had started to feel like a crack in the illusion. Poor lighting. Thin walls. No space to shoot properly. I'd been editing shadows out of my life, literally. This was control. The landlord stepped toward the living area and gestured to the far wall. "And of course," he said, "the mirrors." That's when I saw them properly. 2 sleek, full-length mirrors framed in brushed steel stood opposite the windows, positioned perfectly to catch the natural light. They weren't bulky or decorative. They were seamless, almost blending into the wall. "They're custom," he explained. "Installed specifically for tenants in creative industries. Models, actors, influencers. It's important to see yourself clearly." I walked toward them instinctively. The reflection was crisp. No distortion, no yellow tint, just me. My black cropped blazer hung perfectly over my shoulders. The silk of my high-waisted trousers caught the light like liquid ink. My skin looked smooth, luminous. For a second, I felt something rare. "Safe. This is exactly what I need," I whispered. He nodded, pleased. "I thought so. And since you're a rising star," he paused slightly as if choosing his words carefully, "I'm willing to offer you a reduced rate. Think of it as an investment." "In me?" I asked playfully. "In your future?" I signed the lease that evening. The first 10 days felt like a honeymoon. Mornings began with sunlight warming my face through the sheer curtains. I'd wake up, stretch against the Egyptian cotton sheets, and reach for my phone, not to scroll, but to check emails, contracts, invitations, collaboration proposals. I would pad barefoot across the cool concrete floor to the bathroom, where another full-length mirror waited beside the rainfall shower. The marble countertops were smooth beneath my fingertips. My skincare products lined up like soldiers. Vitamin C serum, hyaluronic acid, retinol. I would lean closer to the mirror, examining every pore, every lash. Perfection wasn't vanity. It was survival. After skincare, I'd step back into the main room and start assembling outfits. Textures layered over textures, cashmere brushing against silk, leather boots with sharp metallic zippers, structured blazers with exaggerated shoulders. Each piece felt powerful in my hands. I'd stand in front of the mirror, angling my body slightly, studying how the fabric draped across my hips. Click. My phone camera captured everything. Outfit transitions, slow turns, Close-ups of stitching. The apartment elevated everything. The reflections doubled the space, making the room feel infinite. My content looked expensive, cinematic, and my audience noticed. New place? Your vibe is next level. Queen energy, the validation poured in like champagne. On the 6th day, I had a casting for a luxury skincare campaign, the kind that could shift my career from rising to established. I remember standing in front of the mirror before leaving, rehearsing my smile, soft but confident, approachable but unattainable. I tilted my chin slightly upward. The mirror never lied. When I returned that afternoon, exhausted but hopeful, I found an email waiting in my inbox that made my heart stop. Subject line: Elite Paris, contract confirmation. For a moment, I didn't breathe. My fingers hovered over the screen. Elite Paris was not just another brand. It was the brand. Timeless European luxury. The kind of campaign that appeared on billboards in airports and glossy magazine covers worldwide. I opened it. Dear Jennifer, we are thrilled to officially confirm your selection as the new digital face of Elite Paris's spring collection. My vision blurred. I sank onto the edge of the bed, rereading the words over and over. A 6-figure contract. International exposure. Exclusive rights for 12 months. My entire body buzzed. I screamed. Actually screamed. I jumped up and ran toward the mirror, phone still in my hand. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, cheeks flushed, hands trembling. This is it, I whispered to myself. This is everything. Tears welled up, but I forced myself to breathe carefully. No swelling, no redness. Image mattered now more than ever. Elite Paris would monitor my public presence, my posts, my reputation. One scandal, one misstep, and it could vanish. I pressed my palm against the cool surface of the mirror. You cannot mess this up, I told myself softly. My entire career depended on maintaining perfection. That night, I ordered champagne and sat cross-legged on the floor, city lights flickering beyond the windows. I filmed a subtle big news coming soon teaser for my followers, careful not to reveal too much. The apartment felt like a co-conspirator in my success. Every polished surface reflected ambition. Every angle sharpened my confidence. Even the landlord sent a brief congratulatory message after. I casually mentioned the deal in passing earlier that week. Proud of you, he wrote. I knew you were destined for something extraordinary. It felt supportive, encouraging. In a city that constantly consumed and replaced girls like me, it was rare to feel seen as a long-term investment. By day 10, the apartment no longer felt new. It felt mine, my sanctuary, my control room. At night, after removing my makeup with gentle circular motions, I would stand barefaced in front of the bathroom mirror. Just me, no lights, no posing. The city hummed faintly outside. Traffic in the distance, a siren somewhere far below. Inside, everything was silent. Private, secure. I would study my reflection and smile softly. I did this, I would think. I believed I was alone. I believed I was safe. And I had no idea that the mirrors I trusted most were about to become something else entirely. I told myself I was being dramatic. The mind plays tricks when you're tired, when you're under pressure, when you've just signed the biggest contract of your life and your brain refuses to power down. The next morning, sunlight poured in like nothing had shifted. The mirrors stood where they always had. Sleek, clean, loyal. I made coffee. Ethiopian roast from Black Line Cafe, just like always. The smell filled the kitchen. Dark chocolate, something almost citrus underneath. I inhaled deeply, grounding myself in something physical and ordinary. See? Normal. I carried the mug to the window and checked my emails. 3 more brand inquiries. A stylist from Paris introducing herself. A reminder from my agent about a fitting later that week. Life was accelerating. There wasn't time to overanalyze a landlord's intuition. The days blurred into preparation. I filmed Get Ready With Me videos in front of the mirror, showing my audience the skincare routine I'd perfected over years. I talked about discipline, hydration, mental strength. You have to protect your peace, I said to the camera one afternoon, smoothing serum across my cheeks, especially when everything starts moving fast. The irony didn't register at the time. In the evenings, I practiced walking in heels across the polished concrete floor, using the reflection to adjust posture, shoulders back, chin steady, eyes confident. Sometimes I caught myself glancing slightly over my shoulder, as if checking the edges of the mirror, just in case, but there was never anything there. 3 days after Mr. Harrison's visit, I ran into him again in the hallway. He was locking another apartment door, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms, even in casual clothes, cream sweater, dark trousers. He looked curated. "Jennifer," he greeted smoothly. "Preparing for Paris?" "Trying to," I smiled. "It still feels unreal." "It won't when you're there," he replied. "You'll adapt quickly. You always do." I paused. "Always?" He tilted his head slightly. "From what I've seen, you adjust well under pressure." There was something about the phrasing. "From what I've seen." But again, social media, interviews, my content. Of course he'd seen me handle pressure. It was public. "You're very observant," I said lightly. "It's my job to observe," he answered. "Property management requires attention to detail." His gaze lingered a fraction longer than necessary. "Not inappropriate, just assessing." Then he stepped aside politely to let me pass. "Rest well tonight," he added. "You were up late yesterday." My steps slowed. "How did you—" He smiled before I could finish. "Your kitchen lights were on past midnight. The building's energy system notifies me of irregular spikes. Don't worry, I don't monitor specifics." A quick, reassuring chuckle. "Just ensuring everything runs smoothly." I nodded, forcing a casual expression. "Smart building, of course." Luxury apartments came with integrated systems. Energy tracking, temperature regulation, remote access panels. It was modern convenience, not intrusion. Still, as I walked back inside, I felt the faintest tightening between my shoulder blades. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I felt unsafe, because I felt exposed to success. The elite Paris contract had clauses that looped through my mind like a mantra. Public morality, reputation management, digital footprint review. I lay in bed scrolling through my own feed, analyzing past posts as if I were a stranger searching for flaws. A caption that could be misinterpreted, a photo that revealed too much. I got up and walked to the bathroom. The apartment was silent except for the hum of distant traffic. Under the soft overhead lighting, I leaned toward the mirror again, bare face, slight shadows under my eyes. "You're fine," I whispered. I turned on a French playlist quietly, something soft and romantic, imagining the streets of Paris at dusk. I let the music echo gently against the tile as I brushed my hair. For a moment, I allowed myself to sway slightly to the rhythm. Alone, unfiltered, not filming, just existing. And in that small private dance, I felt free. The next afternoon, Mr. Harrison texted again. "You'll love Montmartre. It matches your energy." I stared at the message. I hadn't posted anything about Paris locations yet. My stomach dipped. "Have you been?" I replied carefully. "Many times worried," he wrote. "I imagine you listening to Edith Piaf while getting ready. It suits you." The brush slipped from my hand and hit the counter with a sharp sound. Edith Piaf. That was exactly what had been playing in the bathroom the night before, the song I had swayed to. My fingers hovered over the screen. Coincidence. French playlist. Paris deal. Edith Piaf wasn't exactly obscure. I typed back a laughing emoji. "You're psychic." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Just attentive." I swallowed. There it was again. Attentive. The word felt heavier than intuition. Still, nothing he said crossed a line. Nothing was accusatory or invasive. Everything could be explained logically. Luxury buildings had thin ventilation ducts. Sound traveled. Hallways echoed. Smart systems tracked activity. It was normal. It had to be normal. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual before bed. I turned slowly, examining the room from different angles. The mirrors reflected the bed, the windows, the soft glow of city lights. Everything looked pristine, controlled, but beneath the polished surfaces, something invisible had shifted. I felt observed, not physically, not visibly, but in the way you feel when someone stands just outside your peripheral vision. I stepped closer to the mirror and pressed my palm flat against the cool glass. "You're imagining it," I whispered to myself. Stress, success, pressure, those things distort perception. I stepped back, forcing a smile. My reflection smiled too, perfectly synchronized. Still flawless, still mine. I turned off the lights and slid into bed, pulling the sheets up carefully so they wouldn't crease against my skin. The apartment remained silent. Elegant, high-end, secure, and yet as I drifted toward sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that privacy, true, privacy was thinner than glass, that somewhere between reflection and reality, something was paying closer attention than it should. But I pushed the thought away. Because Paris was waiting, and nothing, absolutely nothing, could be allowed to threaten the image I had built so perfectly. The night before Paris smelled like new leather and expensive perfume. My suitcase lay open on the bed, structured and pristine. The elite Paris itinerary printed neatly beside it. 2 garment bags hung from the wardrobe handles, one containing the ivory power suit I planned to wear to the airport, the other holding a delicate black dress for the welcome dinner with the creative team. I folded each piece with deliberate care, silk blouses layered between tissue paper, heels wrapped in soft dust bags, passport placed inside the inner zip pocket. My hands moved automatically, but my mind raced ahead. Runway lights, French accents, camera shutters. This was the moment I had imagined since I was 16. Practicing poses in my childhood bedroom mirror, I paused, glancing at the full-length mirror across the room. Paris, I whispered to my reflection, letting myself smile. My phone buzzed with a confirmation reminder. Flight departs 9:40 a.m. Car service arrives at 7:30. I exhaled slowly, steadying my nerves. Then, a knock, sharp, controlled. My stomach dipped slightly. It was late, past 9. I walked toward the door and checked the intercom screen. Mr. Harrison. He stood there without his usual tailored coat. Just a dark sweater, sleeves rolled to his forearms. His expression was neutral, not smiling. I opened the door. Sorry to disturb you, he said smoothly. I won't take long. Just finalizing the rent confirmation before you travel, and wishing you luck. Something in his tone felt measured. Of course, I replied automatically. Come in. The apartment smelled faintly of vanilla from the candle I had lit earlier. My suitcase sat half-packed behind me. You're ready, he observed, stepping inside. His eyes moved across the room slowly, deliberately, not admiring, assessing. Almost, I said. Coffee? He hesitated for half a second. Black. I turned toward the kitchen, grateful for something ordinary to do. The espresso machine hissed softly. My heart felt slightly too fast in my chest, but I told myself it was travel anxiety. When I handed him the mug, our fingers didn't touch. He didn't thank me. He didn't sip. Instead, he set it down untouched on the counter. You're not going to Paris, Jennifer. The words landed strangely, like a sentence spoken in the wrong language. I laughed automatically. That's not funny. I'm not joking. His voice was different, flat, controlled. The warmth, the almost paternal admiration had evaporated. I straightened slightly. I fly in the morning. He tilted his head, studying me as if I were an object he owned. Not unless we reach a new agreement. The room shifted. I felt it physically, like the air pressure had dropped. I don't understand, I said carefully. You will. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a slim black tablet. My pulse began to hammer in my ears. He tapped the screen once, then turned it toward me. At first, I didn't process what I was seeing. The image was crisp, high definition, perfectly framed. The bathroom. My bathroom, steam curling softly near the ceiling. And then, me, standing in front of the mirror, wrapped in nothing but a towel slipping down my shoulders, my skin bare, my body unguarded, my movements slow and private. My breath left my lungs in a sharp, silent gasp. The angle was wrong. It wasn't from the doorway. It wasn't from a corner. It was straight ahead. Through the mirror? No, I whispered. The video continued, me leaning forward to apply serum, me stepping out of the shower, me swaying slightly to music, intimate, vulnerable, completely unaware. The world narrowed into a ringing sound. That's not possible, I said, my voice barely audible. Mr. Harrison's eyes didn't blink. The mirror, he said calmly. Custom installation. My legs felt unsteady. A two-way glass, he continued. Very discreet. State of the art. You've always photographed beautifully. Jennifer, even when you didn't know you were posing. The nausea hit suddenly, violently. I stumbled backward until my thighs hit the edge of the bed. You filmed me, I breathed. For months. My chest tightened so sharply it felt like something inside me had cracked. All those nights, he said almost conversationally. Your little dances. Your affirmations. The way you study yourself. The humiliation burned hotter than fear. You're insane, I choked. He finally picked up the coffee cup and took a slow sip. No, he corrected gently. I'm prepared. He tapped the tablet again. The screen filled with thumbnails. Dozens. Different angles. Different days. Every private moment I had believed belonged only to me. I don't want to hurt you, he said softly, almost kindly. But I want something in return for my discretion. My throat felt dry as paper. What do you want? His gaze darkened, not lustful, not wild, controlled. You will stay. Cancel Paris, and you will spend time with me. Voluntarily, publicly. You will continue being the rising star. Privately, you will be mine. The words crawled over my skin. If I refuse? I managed. He smiled faintly. If you refuse, these go to your agent, your parents, and most importantly, he leaned slightly closer. Elite Paris. My entire body went cold. You think they'll keep you as the face of their campaign after seeing this? He asked quietly. After the press tears it apart? After your image shifts from luxury to scandal? Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. You're bluffing. He turned the tablet again, this time showing a draft email addressed to a major fashion news outlet. Attachments included. My friend has copies, he added calmly. Encrypted. Scheduled release. If anything happens to me, police, accusations, even a public hint, the files go live automatically. My breathing became shallow. You planned this, I whispered. From the moment you signed the lease, the room felt smaller. The polished floors, the elegant lighting, the beautiful curated space, a cage. Every mirror now felt like an eye. You can't do this, I said, though my voice had lost its strength. I already have. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You built your life on being watched, Jennifer. I simply watched more closely. The cruelty of it sliced deeper than the threat. My brand, my image, my control. All illusions. You have 48 hours, he said finally, stepping back. Decide whether you want to be famous or ruined. He picked up the untouched coffee cup and poured it slowly into the sink. I'll be watching your decision, the words echoed. Watching, he walked toward the door, pausing briefly beside the full-length mirror. You've always loved how you look in these, he said softly. It would be a shame for the world to see you differently. The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Silence. I stood frozen in the center of the apartment. The city lights outside still shimmered beautifully. Cars still moved below. Somewhere, someone laughed. Inside, my sanctuary had collapsed. I turned slowly toward the mirror. For a split second, I imagined someone standing behind it, breathing, observing. My reflection stared back at me, eyes wide, skin pale, confidence shattered. The girl who had whispered Paris hours earlier was gone. In her place stood someone exposed, powerless. I wrapped my arms around myself, as if I could physically hold my dignity in place. 48 hours. My career, my family, my name, everything balanced on a decision I never consented to make. The luxury apartment no longer felt bright. The polished surfaces gleamed like glass teeth, and for the first time I understood something terrifying. I had never been alone here. Not once. And now, even the silence felt like surveillance. The apartment felt impossibly large and hollow the morning after Harrison's visit. The city outside sparkled as usual, but the warmth of the sunlight no longer comforted me. Every polished surface, every gleaming mirror, every perfect angle suddenly screamed betrayal. My sanctuary had been weaponized against me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, letting my mind trace the only path out of this. Panic wanted to take over, but I couldn't. I refused. I was Jennifer. I had built an empire out of images, influence, and instinct, and I had just realized I was facing my first truly insidious opponent. The tablet, the videos, the threat, everything. Harrison had wielded like a dagger, was designed to strip me of control. But control had always been my domain, and I was about to reclaim it. I exhaled slowly, letting my pulse steady. Then I grabbed my phone and sent a coded message to Lucas. Lucas had been a friend since my first London casting at 18. A cybersecurity genius who had once helped me recover my social media accounts after a phishing attack. He understood subtlety and speed, exactly what I needed now. Technical issue with smart home network. Urgent. Can you come? I didn't want to tell him the full story yet, not over a message. If Harrison had any way of intercepting communications, I didn't want to give him more leverage. 48 hours. That's all I had. I sat on the couch, legs tucked under me, sipping the second coffee I had brewed that morning. I kept the blinds half drawn, lighting dim, watching the city, pretending I was just exhausted from packing. My phone rested on the counter, fingers occasionally brushing it, mimicking casual scrolling. Harrison would be monitoring any odd behaviors, even in his absence. I felt his shadow. Lucas arrived with a laptop bag slung over his shoulder, looking calm in contrast to my tight nerves. "Jen, take it easy," he said immediately. "Show me what you've got access to." I guided him through the smart home interface, explaining normal network activity as if I were asking for his advice. My voice wavered slightly and I leaned closer to him, whispering about a weird camera angle. "I didn't authorize." Every word was theater, every pause calculated. Lucas tapped rapidly, pulling logs, tracing IP addresses, scanning connected devices. "Huh," he murmured, eyebrows knitting. "Looks like he's storing video off-site, but not in a friend's hidden network. Just cloud backups, totally centralized, not distributed, no redundancies." My stomach tightened. If that was the case, I could lock him out. I bit my lip. "Can you disable access remotely?" "Easily. Give me 2 minutes." 2 minutes became 20, and each second stretched like a rubber band. My palms sweated and I kept glancing at the mirrors. Every reflective surface now felt alive, as though Harrison could peer back into me. Finally, Lucas leaned back. "Done. He has access to nothing now. All cloud backups are encrypted under your control. Even if he tries to call it in, he's locked out. You're the only one who can retrieve or delete." Relief and adrenaline collided in my chest. But there was no time to celebrate. I spent the next hours preparing my sting operation. Every detail of the apartment became part of the plan. High-definition cameras were installed in corners Harrison would never notice, wired directly to my laptop and a secure feed shared with the cybercrime unit parked in a van below. Every angle, every reflection, every hallway was accounted for. My performance over the past decade had taught me how to manipulate perception, and now I used it to set a trap. When Harrison arrived, I was ready. He knocked late in the evening, as expected. I opened the door wearing a silk camisole and tailored trousers, giving him the illusion of vulnerability. My palms were steady, my smile controlled, my heart racing only in secret. "I've thought it over," I whispered, as if I were negotiating from fear. "Maybe we can come to an understanding?" He stepped inside immediately, eyes sharp, predatory, scanning for any hint of weakness. "I knew you'd reconsider," he said smoothly. He didn't see the cameras. He didn't know the van below was live streaming every movement. I offered him a glass of wine, handing it over with a delicate tilt, maintaining the facade of submission. He took it without a word, and I caught the briefest flicker of arrogance in his eyes. "Now," he said, voice low, leaning closer. "We discussed terms." I nodded, pretending to fold under pressure, but my brain moved faster than ever. Lucas had guided me through every scenario. Each demand, each potential manipulation was anticipated. He pulled out a tablet. "I see you understand what's at stake. These videos, they could ruin you." "Yes," I murmured, biting my lower lip. "I understand." "Then you'll comply," he said, smirking. "Of course," I whispered, turning slightly toward the mirror. Every movement deliberate, calculated. Harrison stepped closer to the mirror, gesturing with the tablet, describing how he had meticulously documented my routines, how the friend ensured nothing could be stopped. His voice was triumph incarnate. He didn't see the cameras behind him. He didn't see Lucas's fingers flying across the keyboard in real time. The backup servers were now entirely in our control. Harrison's bluff, his imagined friend, was powerless. And then it happened. I held up my hand. I need to prepare something before we finalize. Just a moment." He nodded, leaning casually against the counter, never suspecting. I pressed a sequence on my laptop. Live feed cameras now recording everything from his perspective, his every motion, his every confession. Within minutes, the cybercrime unit outside verified the streams. Harrison began to recount, thinking he had me caged. The months of spying, the methods, his imagined network of accomplices. He was proud, sophisticated, unflinching, and I captured every word. When he paused to sip the wine, the doors burst open. Lights flooded the apartment. Officers streamed in. Cybercrime specialists moved toward the tablet and confiscated it. Harrison froze, disbelief painting his face. "Hands behind your back," one officer barked. His composure cracked instantly. The smooth, charismatic predator was replaced by raw panic. He tried to speak, to argue, to bluff, but his words faltered. You don't understand," he shouted, voice rising. "I understand perfectly," I said, stepping forward, finally feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. My voice was steady, commanding, unlike the whispers of fear I had practiced. I understood from the start, and I acted. He was handcuffed in the very apartment he had used as a theater of control. Mirrors reflected the chaos. The polished sanctuary turned crime scene. A week later, I walked onto the elite Paris runway. The lights were dazzling, the cameras relentless, the energy electric. I was flawless, not because of pressure, not because of perfection, but because I had survived. Every stitch of my outfit, every polished step was a testament to regained control. My heart raced, but now from triumph, not terror. After the show, I held a press conference, not to reveal my personal videos, not to cast shame, but to educate. I spoke about digital privacy, women's safety, and the reality that technology can be weaponized. The world listened. Headlines ran, "Supermodel Jennifer battles digital threat, advocates for privacy and safety." I didn't need to share my private footage. I didn't need to display vulnerability to make a point. I had already reclaimed my life, my career, and my dignity. And for anyone watching, anyone thinking this could never happen to them, here's what I want you to know. Check mirrors in new apartments. Tap the glass lightly. If it feels solid, it likely is. Two-way glass sometimes gives a hollow, echoing sound. Fingernail test. Press your nail gently against the glass. If there's a gap between your nail and its reflection, it's likely a regular mirror. No gap? Suspicious. Hidden camera detectors exist for a reason. Infrared scans, RF detection, they're small, affordable, and protect your privacy. Luxury doesn't equal safety. Surveillance can be invisible, but knowledge, strategy, and calm courage are powerful weapons. I learned that in the apartment I once called a sanctuary. I learned it standing on the runway, and I want you to learn it before you ever step into a space that isn't entirely yours. Control isn't given, it's taken. And when you take it, nothing, not even someone like Harrison, can ever touch it again.